So we're going to get started with our Q1 partner webinar. My name is Sam Krebs, and I'm the Channel Sales Manager at PreVeil. I'm the point of contact for our partners if they ever have questions about their partner agreement or if they ever need sales or marketing materials to share internally with their teams or to share with any of their clients. I'm also joined by my colleague, Jamie Leupold. He is our Director at Channel Sales and Alliances and will be leading today's webinar. So with that being said, I'll pass it over to Jamie to introduce a couple more about our guests.
Thanks, Sam. Again, this is Jamie Leupold, Director of Channel Sales and Alliances here at PreVeil. I am part of the sales as well as the compliance team. I'm also a CCP, and some of you might have seen me from the Coffee and Compliance series that I host monthly with various C3PAOs. Excited to have a partner webinar here today. We've got a lot of great topics to cover. We also have a special guest with us. So for the first time, we're actually inviting a partner, in this case, a longtime PreVeil partner, to join us, talk a little bit about the success they've had with PreVeil and how they work with PreVeil, as well as provide an overview of the services they offer that may be beneficial for some of the other partners that we have on this call. So Cliff will be speaking shortly. And then I also have Greg LaRoche, our VP of Product. Greg has been on many of these before. He'll be giving you a product roadmap update, as well as a live demo of PreVeil V2, which will be released shortly. So with that said, the agenda for today, I'm going to be providing an update on FedRAMP moderate equivalency. Many of you have probably heard about this, but perhaps not all, and I'll provide some detail. We're also going to briefly highlight some of the successes that we've been having with customers going through the JSVA process. We'll be speaking with Cliff from Med Security, and then Greg will take over for the roadmap and the demo of PreVeil V2. So FedRAMP moderate equivalency. We're very excited to have achieved this kind of historic milestone. We are the first CSP that has been officially been deemed FedRAMP moderate equivalent by DIBCAC. What this means is, we had to meet all of the 325, 853 controls. So unlike a traditional FedRAMP ATO solution provider, we had zero leniency for POAMs. So we have literally no POAMs. That's been attested to by both DIBCAC, by a FedRAMP 3PAO, as well as DoD. So everyone's reviewed our documentation, our evidence, our body of evidence, and it's been thoroughly reviewed, by multiple parties. This is something that Greg and his team worked over 3 years on. We have dedicated staff solely focused on our FedRAMP moderate equivalency. So it was not something, that we spun up overnight. This was a 3-year plus endeavor. And it took, many, many hours and a very, very significant investment, both in technology and people and processes to make happen. So really excited for this. We've been hearing nothing but fantastic feedback from the market, from the partners that I speak with, from our C3PAO community. I'm sure Cliff can share a little bit more about, what they're hearing from folks. Of course, we have letters of attestation from DIBCAC, from our 3PAO. We also have a full body of evidence that can be made available to assessors, to customers as needed. It is something that, we hold securely, and there is a process to review that. We just ask that if you do need to review the full body of evidence, that you can go ahead and contact compliance@preveil.com, and you'll work directly with our FedRAMP team to go through that process. Beyond FedRAMP moderate equivalent, and why this is so important is this is now going to enable any of our customers that have either previously gone through a joint surveillance voluntary assessment, a JSVA, or are in the midst of going through one to fully complete the process. Prior to the memo, we have had customers that have gone through the JSVA process. They were able to achieve a 110 out of 110 score. However, it did come with a caveat. And that caveat was that they were not fully able to satisfy the DFARS 7012 component of FedRAMP, of the JSVA process through DIBCAC because of the lack of definition around FedRAMP moderate equivalency. It was simply a no determination was met around that specific requirement. Now that the FedRAMP moderate equivalency memo has been released and PreVeil has been deemed to be FedRAMP moderate equivalent, we're happy to announce that any customers that have either gone through the JSVA or are going through the JSVA, or we have several candidate C3BAOs that are now going through the DIPCAC approval process to become an authorized C3BAO. All of those doors have now been, unlocked. Our customers will now be deemed, fully CMMC level 2, not quite certified because they still have to wait for the final rule to come out on that. But all intents and purposes are, if you do pass the JSVA with a perfect 110 score by no later than the 180 days that you have to get through any POAM closeouts, assuming that you do get to that 110 score, that will translate to a CMMC level 2 cert once the final rule is complete and released. So great news there. As far as what we are seeing, we've now had, I believe, 6 or 7 customers that we're aware of that have gone through the JSVA process. Out of those, 5 have fully passed. They are at 110. They've got letters from C3BAOs certifying that they are at a 110. We've got a couple that are going through the POAM process, and that has nothing to do with deficiencies within PreVeil. They just have other things that sometimes they have to work on. We have multiple case studies now of customers that have gone through the JSVA process. We recently did a fantastic webinar. If you haven't caught that, with a company called CocoSing. We had the folks from CocoSing on, their CISO. We also had the C3BAO that actually conducted their JSVA, which was a couple of folks from Redspin were on that. That can be accessed, I believe, orally through our website. We should be making that URL available to anybody that's on this call today as well. But yeah, please do, if you haven't already seen that webinar, go check it out. We'll also be releasing a case study with CocoSing here very, very soon. It's in the final steps of getting fully approved. And Orly will be sharing a link to that CocoSing case study, the CocoSing webinar very shortly. And we'll make the case study available, again, once it's finally approved. You can contact Sam for that. He'll be able to get that out to you. I would now like to bring on Cliff Neve from Mad Security. Mad Security, a very long time PreVeil partner. We've done a lot of business together. And Cliff, it's my understanding that you have also gone through the JSVA process with one of your customers who's also a PreVeil customer. I know we can't share, who the name is for confidentiality reasons, of course, but thanks for coming on, Cliff, and let's just talk a little bit about that, and then, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about Mad Security.
Of course. Yeah, thanks a lot, Jamie. It is a client, we can't disclose, but most people would recognize the name. Very large global company. They had an interesting use case in that, they're headquartered overseas. So they had to split off a North America branch. And so scoping down that environment to something that was manageable and something that was certifiable was pivotal, and something that, PreVeil was a perfect solution to making that happen, to creating an enclave where we could take a lot of those things out of scope that otherwise would not have allowed them to get there. So we've been working with this client for over a year, and we started the process. PreVeil's been incredibly supportive, incredibly helpful throughout the process. It's good to have folks that know and understand CMMC frontwards and backwards, because we've worked with partners that don't. And so having a solution from a partner like PreVeil that's all in on CMMC made things incredibly easier. And our motto at Mad Security is simplify the cybersecurity challenge. And PreVeil's really helped our clients to do that.
That's great, Cliff. And, I think we kind of echo your motto in that we're all about simplifying cybersecurity, simplifying compliance. I think, the point you made that this is a large, multinational, very well-known brand. Hopefully, eventually we'll be able to get a case study with them. No promises. It's always challenging with large organizations like that. But I think that the story that they're able to, take this large, complex organization and really shrink their CUI enclave down as small as possible so that it makes compliance that much easier, is a really good story to tell. So Cliff, I know we've been partners going back, I think to probably about 2019, right? When CMMC was just kind of still in the early 1.0 phase, pre-1.0 release. So I know we've been working together at this for a long time. Really appreciate the partnership. Just tell me a little bit more, about MAD Security, why you chose to work with PreVeil, and where the synergies come in beyond the simplifying cybersecurity and compliance, of course.
So MAD Security has been in existence since 2010, and it's led by our president, Jeremy Conway, who has very deep security operations experience. I also have a deep security operations background, standing up the Coast Guard Cyber Command, and Jeremy stood up the SOC at NASA. So when we started the cybersecurity organization, we've gone through several evolutions, but we really started focusing on managed security services, and in particular, CMMC DFARS, around 2017 or so. That's when we really first started doing that. So since then, one of the things that's really resonated with me about PreVeil is that, within the DoD or the Coast Guard types of scenarios, you have different networks at different protections. And so, you don't need to protect NIPRNet at the same level that you protect top secret JWICs or secret SIPRNet. And so it makes sense to segment out and protect your crown jewels more appropriately than others. And that's more cost effective. It's just a smart way of doing things. So PreVeil has always resonated with me from day one personally. And when we look at trying to guide our clients through the CMMC process, which is incredibly challenging, incredibly nuanced, you almost have to be a lawyer in some cases to figure out, what is or isn't in scope. And so to me, it just made life a lot simpler, much more digestible. We became a PreVeil partner shortly after finding out about them and getting to know them, and we liked the people as well, so it was a cultural fit. But what we found is that's been instrumental. So we have about 250 clients that are going through the CMMC process in various stages. And we operate a 24/7, 365 SOC out of Huntsville, Alabama. It's brick and mortar. Everybody's right there in the office, U.S. citizens, background cleared. Almost all of those clients are CMMC. About 85 to 90% of our clients are ones that are going to be level 2 or level 3 for CMMC. So as we walk through them, we have a lot of the services that get them to where they need to be, from writing policies and procedures, doing pen testing, doing vuln scanning, doing, endpoint detection and response, all those services, from managed user awareness training on up. What we try to do with each client is figure out what is the best solution for them. And in most cases, it's shrinking their environment and shrinking down the scope. And that's kind of where you start. So, we're able to provide all the things on top of PreVeil that the client needs to get them through the process. And we have the experience of taking folks through the JSV and things like that. And especially a very complicated one has resulted in a lot of lessons learned that we're really good at figuring out. But we do everything from pen testing to, policy writing to firewall monitoring, et cetera. And if anybody wants to reach out, we like to partner with folks. Hopefully everybody who's partnered with us will say the same. And so if anybody is interested in partnering with us, if you need a SOC as a service, or policy writing or some of those things on top of what PreVeil provides, here's my contact information. It's pretty easy. cliff@madsecurity.com gets me. And we'd love to partner within this PreVeil community. I think rising tide raises all boats. And I think that as we work together to get our clients to where they need to go, partnerships are absolutely instrumental. Nobody can do everything. So we're excited to continue to be a PreVeil partner and use them to help simplify the cybersecurity challenge.
That's great, Cliff. Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. And so I'm sure, we've got a lot of partners here on the call today. Maybe there are some that are there's some overlap, but I'm sure there are some that, could potentially use services that MAD Security offers. Again, they've been a long time great partner for PreVeil. We have nothing but good things to say about the team. I think just one thing that's always good to help folks understand is, I think we have a pretty clear understanding of what you do. What is it that you kind of don't do? I think we've had this conversation, before, but between us, and my understanding was, you're not trying to do those MSP traditional services. You're not trying to do hands-on keyboard type of stuff. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, and we don't do C3PAO either. Our interest is on the cybersecurity side, helping folks get through this challenge. So even though we have personnel who are perfectly capable of becoming C3PAOs or getting their RPA or CCA, CCP, and they will get those, they are getting in the process of getting those. So they are qualified. As a company, we're not interested in doing anything except for helping folks with the cybersecurity side. So we do have several MSP partners that we work with, and so we don't do things currently like patching, but we will help people with what to patch, right? We do our vuln scans where we're able to say, hey, here's the vulnerabilities we're seeing. We run Qualys for that. Nessus sometimes. So we're able to work within that ecosystem. We recognize that we have our niche within that ecosystem. And so that makes us a really good partner because we were able to kind of fill in gaps. So if there's an MSP that just needs, and they sell endpoint or they sell endpoint detection response, they sell PreVeil, great, and they just need a SOC as a service to meet some of the controls or for security reasons, we're happy to just do those pieces. And for that reason, as an owner, I'm the vice president of partnerships because that doesn't really belong on the sales team. It's partnership teams. And so we work with everybody. So I know personally what the swim lanes are with our partners and where we should work together and respect that at all times.
That's great, Cliff. I appreciate you providing that additional detail. So again, anybody that wants to reach out to Cliff that's on this call, feel free to contact him directly. If you want any intros, you can always reach out to myself as well, and the sales team here at PreVeil. So with that said, I think that kind of covers my portion of today's webinar. I'm going to turn things over now to Greg to go through some product updates on our roadmap, a quick demo.
Great, thanks, Jamie. So let's start with the roadmap update, and then we'll wrap it up with some pretty exciting new experiences we're releasing and want to talk about. You may or may not have noticed, if anyone is using the web version of PreVeil, it's the not installed client version that's accessed through web.preveil.com, and that you can log into using credentials on your mobile phone if you have PreVeil on your mobile device, or you can log in using a password and SMS code if you're a PreVeil Express user. So in either case, if you're using either of those versions, or you have a free account, you've just wanted to try out the PreVeil Express browser, you'll notice there's a new button up here. It says try our new UI. We're going to look at that in a minute. If you click there, it's going to take you through from the current web experience into the new 2.0 experience. So that's we're considering that beta testing right now, and that is live. So anyone can go to web.preveil.com, log in with your phone, or sign up for a free Express account using your password and SMS code. And then click this button. It'll flip you over to the new UI, which we're going to look at in a minute. Spend a little bit of time in there talking about what's new and what's different about the Web 2.0 interface. And I'll give you a little more color about what that's all about when we get to that section. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about upcoming releases on the client side. So on the add-in front, we're working on updating the Outlook add-in so that it can expand its auto-encrypt behavior. Now, what that means is, I don't know, for folks that are using the Outlook add-in, this is the additional plugin for the Outlook client for Windows that allows you to add that banner that shows the user what's encrypted and non-encrypted. It also adds a button to switch modes between encrypted and non-encrypted. It also has an auto-encrypt behavior under certain circumstances. For example, it can watch the subject line in your messages for keywords like CMMC or secure or something like that, or ITAR, and then automatically make sure that the add-in is defaulting to the encrypted mode for messaging. And that's just a nice usability feature. It helps avoid users, doing the wrong things with their messaging, sending things through the commercial mail that really should go through PreVeil mailbox. So we're expanding that to automatically go into encryption mode when you attach a file from Drive. So right now, you can add attachments to PreVeil messages, of course, and they can come from Drive or they can come from elsewhere on your device. But we wanted to add the ability so that if you're pulling an attachment from Drive, the chances are good that that's information that's special or controlled in some way, and then you really should be in the auto encrypt mode at that point. So that feature is on hold because we are fixing an issue that was recently discovered on it. But we're expecting to put that issue to bed and then release that in the coming weeks. So that's, just for those using the Outlook add-in. And also, I don't know if you folks know this and all, but there's a new update capability for all the add-ins, the Office add-in for locking and unlocking files, as well as the Outlook add-in for creating the mail experience I just talked about. Those all are updatable now from the client side. So you go into the PreVeil key menu on your desktop, and if there's a new add-in available, you'll be prompted. There'll be a little flag on, and then you click on it, and you can update your Outlook add-in to a new version on, yourself, instead of having to install it or have someone distribute it to you. So that's just an FYI in case folks didn't know that. And then the current version. Yep.
I just had a question. So the auto encrypt capabilities, that sounds pretty cool. Is that customizable, or are the words predetermined that will enforce the auto encryption?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, the list of strings or words that trigger the behavior is editable. It's actually an XML file that is a resource to the plugin or the add-in, and that can be modified. So you can add words, you can remove words, whatever you like. But it does come with a stock dozen or so words that is your default. So the current version of the client installer for Windows and Mac that exists on the preveil.com/download page is the 427.1 release. Right now, 427.0 is on the updater. So that's the version most of you are running. But if you go to the download page, you can update to .1 and you get a couple new features. You get retaining last modified date on uploading files to PreVeil Drive. It was a very common point of confusion for our users and our customers, where whenever you ingested files into Drive, it would reset the dates to today's date, and that would lose some of the history that those files may have had that may have been useful to the customers. So they've really asked us to have that behavior change so that we keep the dates the way they were, and so that's implemented in 427.1. There's also a new implementation of our IMAP server, which is the mail relay that goes into the installed client that works with Outlook and with Gmail and other mail systems to provide the PreVeil mailbox. And that's been ported from its previous programming language into Go. It's faster, it's more reliable, easier to develop on now. So that'll be invisible to you, but it's, you may notice an improvement in performance. Okay, and then 428 is the new Web 2.0 UI that we're going to see in the Express version today that's now in beta. We're going to see that going into the desktop update. So there'll be a 4.28 release. It's going to have the new desktop UI. And that's currently scheduled for April. And then we have a 428.1 coming right behind that has a couple of additional features, like being able to rename a shared collection and have that name propagate across all the people that share that collection. Collection is a fancy word for folder that we use at PreVeil. So if you rename a folder that's shared, right now that name change only happens on your machine and everyone else keeps the old name, the previous name. And so that's confusing. And so the new feature will actually propagate a name change across everyone that has access to that folder or collection, as we call it. And there's also a cool feature coming that we're calling selective sync. Right now we do have a selective synchronization capability where you can go into individual folders and subfolders and decide which ones sync locally or not. But you have to do it user by user, and you have to do it, and there are some rules like that restrict some certain use cases of what you can share, what you can sync or not sync in a subfolder. All that's getting redesigned, and there'll be a new UI that goes with it for the desktop version. Not the web version, but the desktop will have a new selective sync user interface that will let you actually use a tree, your folder file tree, and you'll be able to navigate that tree inside the UI and click which nodes you want to sync or not. Really, really smooth. And then you hit commit or go or next, and then the system will then make all those changes all at once. So that's pretty cool. That's going to be a really powerful feature for people that want to not sync everything in their environment, but still have use cases where they do want some of the information to sync locally to devices. So that's coming in May. And then a couple things coming later that you might be interested in. We have the ability, on the same topic of syncing, we have the ability to set a default for the sync behavior currently at the administrative console level. So the admin can say, okay, for this org, when anybody shares something with any other user, it's either going to sync or not sync by default. And sync means it gets copied to the local device and stays synchronized to the cloud. And not synced means it stays only in the cloud. And it still appears in the PreVeil application, so you can still operate on those files and see things you have access to. But they don't, because there's no local copy on your machine, they don't appear in your File Explorer or your Finder in Mac. And so what people have asked for is they said, well, instead of having it be a default setting that users can override, which is how it behaves today, we want to make it a rule so that if we don't want things to sync, they don't sync, and the user cannot override that. And so that's being introduced later on this year, and we're calling it Cloud Lock, which is basically kind of like a cloud mode or cloud files only mode, where everything will stay in the PreVeil cloud and files will not sync locally. And then you'll have to manage exceptions to sync local files. And you would do that, you'll do that by user. So basically you'll say, like, this user is allowed to sync or override the rule and no other user is. It'll work a lot like the device add rule that we currently have. And then the next feature is express account recovery. So if you
Greg, just real quick question on the cloud lock. That sounds like that's a pretty powerful feature, and I know I hear it a lot from partners. I get the request. How do we restrict local downloads of files? So it seems like that'll solve that challenge quite a bit. But what about customers that still want to be able to collaborate on documents? Is that going to be a view-only setting, or will you still be able to actually edit documents within PreVeil?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jamie. Thanks. Yeah, and I probably didn't mention that specifically because you already have a feature in PreVeil where you can edit files that are only in the cloud, that are not synced. Because currently, as we say, we have this default behavior and users can override it. But today you can have folders that are not synced. And we've been able to support that for some time. And if you go into a resource, you go into a folder that's not synced and you try to look at the details of any resource in that folder, like a Word document, let's say, or a PDF, and you'll notice there's a button that appears in the UI that says edit. And if you hit the edit button, what happens then is that the PreVeil client will then fetch that file from the cloud for you, will decrypt it, will put it in a temp area where your local editor for that file type, let's say Word, can open that file locally, temporarily. You can make your edits, and then you close or save, and then that local copy gets blown away. The changes are re-encrypted, and then that is resynchronized to the cloud, and the cloud now has a new version with changes. That also automatically locks that file while you're doing that, so other users can't step on your changes while you have that file in what we call cloud edit mode. So we already support that, so that'll continue. So when you have a cloud-only environment that users cannot override, you'll still have the cloud editing feature available to you.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. And then one thing about Express that's pretty exciting is for those of you that have Express accounts or have customers that use Express accounts, they are normally protected with a password and an SMS code at login. The password is not saved anywhere. PreVeil doesn't have it. PreVeil doesn't want it because it actually encrypts your key when it's stored. So users are at risk if they forget their password or if they lose it. And PreVeil cannot currently help them recover because we don't have their password. So they're kind of stuck. And customers that get stuck in that predicament, really their only workaround is to delete that account and recreate it over again, and then ask people to reshare things with them or resend things they're missing. It's really kind of not a great experience. So we are introducing a feature that will allow a user to recover their Express account. It's going to work a lot like the QR code recovery works for the installed client, if any of you have tried using that feature. But what's going to happen is when a user signs up for their Express account, they're going to get, obviously they're going to create their initial password and do all that stuff. And we, are going to encourage them to save that password in a password manager or keep it somewhere secure so they can reference it if they need to in the future. But if that all else fails, they'll have the ability to request a recovery, and they'll have to authenticate back to the original email they used to open their account plus their SMS code. And then it's going to actually use a shard of their key, a mathematical piece of their key that'll be stored, that had been stored when they assigned their account initially on that device. And then there's also another shard that's going to be kept in the cloud. Either shard all by itself isn't enough information to make a key, but if you put them together, there's enough data there to recreate the key. So that's the idea. So we'll be using Shamir secret sharing and key sharding to be able to allow a user to recover their Express account key. And then, of course, they have to select a new password at that point and re-encrypt the key with a new password. But that's new. It's good because then the user will have a self-service way to recover their account, which is, right now, not, like I said, not an optimal experience the way it's limited currently. So that's a couple new features coming that are exciting. If any of your customers are asking about our SOC 2, I know Jamie already updated you on FedRAMP moderate equivalency, but we also carry a SOC 2 Type 2 certification, and that assessment for 2024 is currently underway. So if anyone is asking for this year's report, that's obviously going to be done soon. In April, we expect to have the actual report, but if anyone needs something in advance of that, we have a letter of engagement we can give you, and then there's a legacy report that is older. So we'll have a current SOC 2 Type 2 very soon, and then that'll bring us up to date on that front. And now let's take a look at the new V2 UI in Express. Right now you're seeing a CUI message that's going to pop up. It's a setting for people that are invited to join through orgs and such. And that's just to warn the user that they've logged onto a machine that could access CUI. And that's part of the NIST 800-171 requirement. But you'll notice a lot of things about this new user interface, not the least of which is it is much, much faster than the current one. So if I switch to, say, Drive, see how fast those folders came in? It's like the blink of an eye. And email's the same way. Email loads instantly. Email messages load near instantly. It's very, very powerful. The editor itself has all kinds of new features. You can break it out, make it bigger. It's a much larger work area for doing emails. All the same email features are supported, of course, but it's just a more intuitive interface that's much, much faster for email. So that's kind of like, pretty exciting new thing. Here's an example of one that's multi-threaded, message chain, and it's cleaner, it's faster. And there's also a lot of changes here in the navigation. Say we have the normal navigation here, but once you learn what all the icons do, you can actually reclaim some of that space and go into just an icon mode. The whole thing is a lot more responsive to various size screens. And so there's a lot of enhancements. So what's going on here is this is not just colors and fonts and typography. The entire structure of the UI, the entire framework underneath the web code itself has been rewritten, refactored. And so that's one of the reasons it's faster. And one of the other reasons are that the APIs themselves, many of them have been optimized. So like while we were in all of that code, the developers have optimized a lot of these interactions between the web interface and the back end. So faster, more usable. But of course, all the same features are here. They're just presented in new and better ways. So here's Drive. Drive has all kinds of cool enhancements. You'll notice here in the right context menu, you now have the ability to share, move details for any particular folder or collection. If you open the details page, you're going to see a lot more information all in one place. It's a lot more intuitive than having a different share place, and then there's a different, move place, and there's a different rename place, and they're all kind of, lot more fragmented. Where now in the new details experience, everything's in one place. So if you need to add somebody to your share, you do it right here. And you're not popping up secondary windows and all that stuff. You're staying right in here. It's very intuitive, much easier to operate, and a lot of you might have seen the progress bar that blinked. A lot of new progress bars have been added. So when operations are large and take a few seconds, the user will get feedback on that, which is one of the things we really wanted to add to the product. So that's there's a whole bunch of enhancements in Drive finding, and this is the first step towards our Drive search feature. So very soon, later this year, we will be introducing the ability to search file names in Drive in this environment. So that'll be just added right up here, a search bar. So that's this is the precursor to all that. And so hopefully you guys will check this out. Like I said, you go to the current web.preveil.com and use either your Express credentials or use a mobile phone to log into WebPreVeil and click the button that says try the new UI, and that'll take you right into this new experience. And of course, feedback always welcome. So if you spot anything, it's still in beta. So if you see anything that you don't understand or you think is not working properly, just shoot me a note at feedback@preveil.com, and I get all those messages. So that was really what I wanted to show in terms of the Web 2.0 UI. And again, this will be ported to the desktop a little bit later this year, and then it'll be like the UI going forward for both the web and the desktop. And the desktop will also inherit the performance enhancements and this lightning fast behavior. We're pretty excited about it. It took a long time. A lot of our engineering team has worked on this over a long period of time to re-architect all the framework underneath the UI, and then a lot of designers and UI people focusing on the usability and how to move the controls around to make them easier to use. And this is the result of all that work. And so we're pretty excited about that.
Thanks, Greg. That certainly looks great. You mentioned that this is currently in beta for the WebPreVeil /PreVeil Express experience. Do we have just an estimated kind of ETA for when this will be ported to the desktop? And we won't hold you to it, but it would be good to have some frame of reference.
Yeah, the goal is to have the desktop beta version ready in April. So not too long to wait. That's the current estimate. And then once we get a high level of confidence that the beta is stable and ready to go, we'll launch it for general availability. And that, we could probably call that May would be a good estimate for that. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. So I think that concludes the content that we had to present here today for our Q1 partner webinar.